Okay, good afternoon. I hope you had a good first day so far, and we've got a great rest of the day still to come. We're going to start off with a voting session. So one of the voting surveys using the app. So if you all want to log into the app or get your mobile phones or iPads or whatever the Google or Android equivalent is, because we're going to have a quick voting survey and get some ideas of what some of the most important people in the North American finished vehicle logistics industry think. So it's a great snapshot. Simple questions, but it gives us a snapshot of what the industry thinks. So we've just got 5 quick questions. So if you can log on to the app, if you need the Wi-Fi network code is Finished Vehicle Logistics 2018, and the password is PROACT18. And then log on to the apps. I think a lot of you have already logged on to it, but if you can log on to that and go to the section that says polling, FVL polling. Okay, so hopefully a lot of you have logged on. So maybe we'll start getting the questions up and we'll see what the industry thinks at the moment of some of the trends in the industry. So the first question is, which technology will have the most impact on finished vehicle logistics? Will it be connected cars? Will it be kind of simple and not so, e-pod, electric proof of delivery? Will it be yard management technology? Will it be the Uberization of finished vehicle logistics? Will it be autonomous trucks? Or will it be something that we kind of maybe a little bit further ahead but will have a huge impact, blockchain? So if you can vote now, you've got 10 seconds to vote for that. So which technology will have the most impact on finished vehicle logistics? Connected cars, e-pod, yard management, Uberization of FVL or finished vehicle logistics, autonomous trucks, or blockchain? So we've kind of gone for I wouldn't say an easy answer, but yard management. Maybe we're still thinking a little bit currently about what we need to fix now. So yard management was the top answer. Connected cars will have a big difference. Autonomous trucks had less votes than blockchain, which is interesting because I kind of understand autonomous trucks, but I really don't understand blockchain. And for such a young guy like me. The next question is, the next generation of finished vehicle logistics logisticians will be experts in supply chain management, intermodal transportation, mathematics, or information technology. So what are you looking for in the next generation of finished vehicle logisticians? If you can vote now. IT, information technology, supply chain management still up there second. I actually thought maths with all these algorithms and so on that everyone talks about might be higher than that. The next question, what will encourage innovation in finished vehicle logistics? There seems to be kind of a bit of a thought that in finished vehicle logistics isn't innovative enough. So what will encourage innovation in finished vehicle logistics? Will it be regulation forcing us into it? Will it be new technology that's available that we're only too happy to use if it was available? Will it be customer requirements as they're used to the Amazon effect? Will it be a bias for action? We'll decide that we want to be innovative? Or will it be industry collaboration, that we can do things innovatively if we collaborate? So again, if you can answer now, please. Interesting. So customer requirements comes up high, that we're going to have to innovate, have to adapt because of the new customer expectations. And new technology was a close second, that, if there was better or different new technology, we'd be happy to adopt them and be more innovative. So the next question is, what will discourage innovation in finished vehicle logistics? Will it be regulation, restricting us from doing what we want to do? Will it be our industry reluctance to change? Will it be dealer resistance, who, we're trying to push some of the changes on them, but they're happy with their own status quo? Or will it be the fear of collaboration that stops us from innovating? So again, answer now, please. Interestingly, the industry reluctance to change. Well, bearing in mind that in this room is a lot of the industry, it's an interesting point. Whether you're saying that if everybody else changed, we'd be happy to innovate, or whether you're one of the guys or one of the people who are resistant or reluctant to change. But it's interesting that 50 or 48% of the audience feel that industry reluctance to change inhibits and discourages innovation. Then the next question is, what will be the biggest disruptor? What will almost force us into change? What will be the biggest disruptor of vehicle logistics? Will it be autonomous cars? Will it be autonomous trucks? Will that change how we work? Will it be a change in dealer models? Perhaps like Amazon selling cars or something like that. Will that change finished vehicle logistics? Or will it be the change in more mobility models, maybe more car sharing, maybe less car ownership? So what will be the biggest disruptor of vehicle logistics? Answer now, please. So the change in dealer models, whatever that means, whether it's, and we're using Amazon as an example, but, different ways of selling cars, and the change in mobility models, less car ownership or more shared car ownership, those are expected to have the biggest impact on, or biggest disruption on finished vehicle logistics. And there's a kind of warning there for all of us, because those aren't so far away. If we really think they're going to disrupt our industry, disrupt your industry, they're really not far away at all. So, we've got to be ready for these changes, ready, agile, ready, flexible to change, because, these things aren't so far away. So we've got to be ready to change. And I think that was the last question of the survey. So that kind of leads us on to this session now, is inspiring fresh ideas and fresh thinking. So how do you, from a leadership perspective, how do you inspire the teams? How do you inspire your team? How do you inspire new ideas? How do you encourage fresh ideas? How do we bring the next generation of finished vehicle logisticians into our industry? So that's exactly what this session and what this panel is about. And we've got a great panel to have this discussion. Starting from this side, nearest to me is Anu Gold, the Executive VP of Group After Sales and Services for Volkswagen Group of America. Then is Jim Kasamis, the Manager of Finished Vehicle Imports and Logistics for Mercedes-Benz. Then it's Christine Dicas, CEO of the Port of... I used to have a thing, Hyanimi. That's it, Hyanimi. So that's... you do some of the stupid things I do have a purpose in the end. And then on the far side, Kathleen McCann, the chairman and CEO of United Road. And I'm also kind of, very proud for what it's worth. And the fact that I'm mentioning it may be a negative in itself, but the fact we're looking at, leadership, inspiring fresh ideas and fresh thinking, and looking forward at how the industry should be. I think it's very good that we've got, a fair split of two males and two females on the panel, and I hope that's a reflection of how the industry's going to be and going to change in the future. Because if we want fresh ideas and fresh thinking, we've got to have diversity in all different kinds of ways in our industry. So it is a panel discussion, so we're open to questions right from the beginning. There aren't any presentations or anything like that. But I will start with one question as I make my way to my chair as well. And I'll start with Anu, start in this kind of direction, is Why is this important? Why is this important now? Why is this a discussion we should be having in 2018 at a finished vehicle logistics conference? And
because you said so. Look, I mean, we talk about this a lot. What is our role as leaders? Right? And it's to develop teams. Right? So what's historical culture in your company? Right? Because to me, this is all driven by culture. I've got the privilege of working for a German company, but it's very Germanic. And decisions are sent from top down, and if you question them, you're an idiot. Right? So you mix German culture with American culture, and Americans have a propensity to ask questions. How is that perceived by the mothership? Right? So to Louis' question, why is this an important deal at this point in time? I think it's always been important. I think it's just more important now at the pace of change. We talk about talent and bench strength in our companies. You talk about this could encompass the whole conversation today. The people or the next generation of people we want to bring in here. They don't take top-down orders. Right? They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want to be involved in developing it. And if you don't engage them, what's your talent pool? Right? So, and the problems we have, everything's changing like this. Some of the questions you just threw up here, right? Amazon's a huge disruptor for our business. Autonomous vehicles are huge, right? It's the old, what's the most underutilized capital asset in the US today? It's the car. It gets used 4% of the time, second largest purchase people have. You go to mobility sharing, what's that do to our business? Right? So if we don't start thinking about that stuff and get people looking at it from a fresh view, this room's going to be 1/10 of the people down the road because someone will have figured it out and it's not us. I'm a little long-winded, but that's pace of change, people we're trying to attract, and the business environment.
I don't think it's a current issue. I think it's always been an issue of attracting and holding the right people. Just the challenges change and the background. So there's so much going on now in the industry. You want to get people into the door. I've only been coming here for 5 years into these meetings, and I see a whole different mix of people out there. So I think attracting the right people and just growing for the future is always going to be a challenge.
Well, I would just add that it's important to drive our industry as a whole forward. I think that we want to attract the best of the best to our industry, and I think people want to be part of winning teams. And if you're going to be on a winning team, you have to have the best in innovation and best in technology. People want to be where they can be empowered, where they can grow, where they can be challenged, where they can be part of a team that's going to be moved forward. And they get up every day and they're motivated. They're excited to go to work. They have a buzz. You create that culture. I think it will be epidemic within your own organization, but it can also be part of our success as an industry as a whole. And a lot of it will drive our industry forward, and a big part of it is innovation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of good points have been made. I might just add that it's, we all want to be the best version of ourselves, whether you're an employee in an organization or the organization as a whole. So wanting to always do better is something that's going to drive us. A more practical response might be survival. If you know anything about the car haul side of finished vehicle logistics, we aren't, floating in super high margins, although we clearly must be doing something wrong because I heard earlier this morning that we're driving on the roads for free. It hadn't occurred to me that was true. Okay? But there are always ways that we're going to have to improve if we're going to survive.
One of the questions is the disruptors. I know you've got two, amongst your many hats is the service parts side, and you know that finished service parts side really is going to be impacted by Amazon, and it's starting now. Surely it's not going to be too long until finished vehicle logistics is also going to be affected by something like that. So is this need because, as you said, to remain relevant? That's why we need to have the fresh ideas and the fresh strategies. As I said, it's to survive. It isn't just about being smart or super smart. It's at that level now that we need to change to survive, not to become a bit more profitable or leaner. Just to survive, we need to start thinking of fresh ideas.
I mean, it's interesting. The question I'd ask if someone said that to me, just as you just did, is, does the customer care who's doing it?
No.
So if it's a matter of survival, why are we doing it for survival, right? To protect our jobs, right? The question we got to ask ourselves is, are we adding value to the customer? And the customer's got to be the vehicle owner, right? And that's where I think Amazon's got its hands down. Everything that they do to get something to a customer, they could care less about the supply chain. I mean, people think of them as a supply chain company. I don't. Their customer satisfaction. Everything they do is with the end user in mind, right? Just ask yourselves in your companies, who do you think your customer is? I used to work for a gentleman at the Blue Oval. He had the best line that I've ever heard about the business relationships, right, with dealers and suppliers, et cetera. So there's only one end customer, it's the vehicle owner. And we need to think like them. What are their requirements, right? You asked earlier, to me it is driven by customer requirements, and that's where the audience came out. Everybody else is a partner in delivering that experience. And it changes your mindset. On the parts side, when I first started here, we asked our team who the customer was, and the answer was the dealership. The parts manager, the service manager. What the parts manager and service manager wants from us is different than what the customer wants. We were doing things to satisfy the parts and service managers. We weren't satisfying the customer. It creates different solutions, right? So I'd get past the survival. To me, it's, do we add value? If not, there's going to be someone that will add value. It just won't be us.
Well, that's right, and then you won't survive, right? So I totally agree with you that survival ultimately is about making sure your customers are taken care of and their customers are taken care of. It's not just enough for us to be a little bit better in order for us to survive and help you survive and help your customers survive. We gotta innovate, and we have to sometimes figure out ways to improve our own operations, things within our own sphere of influence, in order that we can turn around and benefit the customer and then be there to help the customer.
So it's not enough to do your job. It's not enough to do the next level. If you're, as you said, your job might be, in theory, your job might be to get the car to the dealer. Your job might be to get the car to, also to the car to the dealer, and so on. But that's not enough. You've got to think beyond that. Is that what you mean? You have to look at the next step after that?
Yeah, well, this is very complicated business we're in, right? So the focus is absolutely on the customer, but I also have to be innovative, we all do, in order to attract and retain talent. We have to be innovative in order to make sure that we're using our technology to the full, in order to create those enhancements and whatnot that will improve service and help us be better. There are a lot of different ways that we have to come at this. It's absolutely the end game is serving the customer, but there are a whole lot of steps that you got to take in addition to that.
Yeah.
I might add, you have to also think about what you want to be a part of or what the talent wants to be part of. So, and it depends kind of what world that you might live in. But by way of example, if you're in a port community, you have to work with the community. You have to think about how green you're being to sell yourself. So innovation is not just driven to the technology that we're all dealing with, but it's also what else are you doing to put yourself out there to be at the forefront of innovation. I would speak to a program that we have at Port Hueneme. We call it MAST. It's our Maritime Advanced System Technology Laboratory, where we bring users of technology in the same room with the developers of the technology, and then we bring the community in and we invite the STEM kids in to watch this dialogue all go down. So that puts us on the forefront of an innovative discussion that I think at the end of the day also gives the port a competitive angle, and it will help us attract this talent as it kind of go back to that first concept I said, everybody wants to be part of a winning team, but that's been...
I think the competition and the disruptors are good. I mean, that's what drives improvement, that's what drives efficiency, and without that, you become stagnant. So I don't it's good that other guys are getting in the marketplace and making it tougher and pushing us to new levels.
Yeah, just a quick story. When you think about innovation, anybody in this room got the idea for the next iPhone in our business? Right? So what is innovation? To me, this is about culture, right? You bring your team together, and once again, you learn a lot of things from bosses, good and bad, prior life. I had a boss that used to tell me, look, your team's going to disagree with 8 out of the 10 decisions that executive management makes. And the reason they disagree with it is because we don't share with them the information we had when we made it. So if you don't have access to the information, you get an edict, how are you going to buy into making that a reality? So one of the things I learned a long time ago is get your team together, share with them what the issue is, what you're looking at, and ask them what they suggest. Right? At VW, when we do performance reviews, we got your performance on, and I was telling Kathleen the story earlier, objectives, right? So clear and cut. Here's your KPIs. How are you doing? Fine, 1 to 5 scale. And then we got competencies, which are leadership skills, and there's 9 of them, and one of them is innovation. Trust, respect, performance-driven, innovation, collaboration, et cetera. So what I tell my team is, you want to piss off your boss, being me, ask if you get something less than a 5 on trust, respect, innovation, ask them what it takes to get there. Because I don't know. But I'm rating you on it. Right? So what is innovation? To me, it's looking at things differently. Right? Do you expand your tool set? Right? I was telling a story earlier when expired parts is a big deal on the service parts side, right? Chemicals, adhesives, et cetera, they have a shelf life. Which industry in the world has the biggest expiry problem that they've figured out? It's pharmaceuticals. Drugs have a shelf life. Why aren't we talking to our colleagues on that side of the business? All of a sudden, see these eyes open up. We didn't give them a solution, just told them to set up some contacts, they figured it out, they came back with a great solution. Right? We didn't reinvent the wheel. Right? We just expanded the horizons and let them figure it out. Right? That's how, to me, and I don't know what my colleagues up here think, but that to me is how you get the team going. Share information, get their buy-in. It's, once again in prior life, management by meetings, right, or by group, there's no one to blame. It was the executive committee that made the decision, right? Drop a couple breadcrumbs, say this is where we want to go, and let them connect the dots and figure it out. That, to me, is innovation.
Maybe if I could add on to that,
Yeah.
You're talking about the clarity. I totally agree with that. There's an old adage that says that culture trumps strategy every time, right? And so if you are not clear about the strategic direction that you have chosen for your company and communicated it and then created clarity and then recommunicate clarity and reinforce clarity, you're going to have people at cross purposes. So it's really, really important for all of us to be clear with our folks the direction that we're heading. And it also has a really important impact on the trust factor. Trust is a force multiplier, really enhances the speed of what we're able to accomplish together. And if you're sharing with people the direction you're going, they're more apt to trust, they're more apt to help, they won't be working at cross purposes. So when we talk about how do we get creative ideas from our people, tell them the direction. And if in the best circumstances, try and get feedback from them as to what direction they think we should go. Ultimately, we decide, let's go this direction. We have alignment, we communicate, and then we get feedback and reinforcement from our people. And that really, really, really helps with the likelihood of success.
Okay. Perhaps taking a step back, probably out of all the things I've heard at the conference, and maybe one of the most disappointing things I've heard for a while at any conference, was the survey we just had then. Not the question about what are the disruptors and so on. It was what's holding back innovation. It's the reluctance of the industry that we are holding back innovation. So, how do we, we've kind of dug into that a little bit already about sharing and so on. But, that is that's maybe at the core, definitely the perception that it's the core of the problem. When you speak to outside people, speak to people in other sectors of automotive and so on, that the finished vehicle logistics sector in particular is reluctant. They're not open to innovation. So, and we voted that in here in a finished vehicle logistics conference. So, any thoughts on that?
I think it's not so much reluctance, it's just having the time to look forward. Because this is a today business, there's so much to be done today just to meet the objectives. It's hard to just step back and get everybody to step back and start looking for the future. Otherwise, you don't get the job done and you're finished.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think everybody wants to innovate and change. But, I'll reflect. I've been in this industry a little bit more than 7 years now. And I remember the first conference I came to, we were talking about geo-baying and getting rid of paper. Okay, and this morning at our sessions, we're talking about some great efforts to geo-bay. 7 years later, it's great. Let's do it. Okay. Another thing was the cooperation between some of our supply chain segments. We've talked a lot about cooperating throughout this supply chain. It's moving slower than we would like. We've had the ability to be paperless for almost 10 years. We're still talking about schlepping around paper all over the place. I don't think it's that there's a desire not to change. I think that we can't all change at the same pace, and we have to encourage each other to change so we can all benefit as an industry and service our customers better.
Mm-hmm.
I would add, as leaders in industry, it's incumbent on us to embrace it, and I'll revert back to the MASS program that we've rolled out, and one of the things that we've done is open up the board to be an incubator of new technologies and invite the entrepreneurs in and test those technologies. And I'll give an example. We have a partner in Tesla who has put $5 million worth of battery packs in our port. They buy electricity off-peak, and then we sell it to our customers when they need it. And so you get a value added to the customer. You're testing a new technology. And I think there are ways that we can be innovators, even though we're in a supply chain that tends to have traditional ways of doing business. I think as leaders, we can open those doors. We can go out to those entrepreneurs and we can invite them into our supply chains and learn how we can do better.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts to add on. How do you define innovation, right? We've talked about it a little bit. To me, it's just incremental change, right? 10 incremental little ones add up to one big one. So we're in a business that's you could argue, a dinosaur historical physical movement of stuff, right? So if you think about what the definition of innovation is, you can get your team to start thinking a little bit differently. But I think a bigger hindrance to it is if you have an idea, how many ideas can you control and implement yourself? And if you can, you don't need anybody else, so what's stopping you from doing it? Some of the ideas that come up, at least for our company, our org structure, you will not find anywhere printed because it is complex and all over the place, right? So if someone has an idea, we come up with 10 reasons it won't work, right? We don't have the money. Right? We got to work with the mothership, and that's not going to happen because they'd have to change it for the world and not just the specific market. We come up with reasons not to do it, and we kill ideas, not day one, but that night or the next morning. Right? How do we facilitate making it come to life? Do we have the culture? Are we supporting our teams, working cross-functionally, taking away, I hate the roadblocks and all that kind of stuff, right? But are we taking the ideas forward? Or if it does get killed, are we helping them understand why it didn't go forward? Right? Because if you can help someone why it didn't go forward, they're still going to come up with ideas going because it may make sense to them. Mm-hmm. Right? And okay, I get it. I hadn't thought about that. But it's like the old suggestion box ideas, right? Throw it in, you don't hear anything, no one comes up with any suggestions. Right? But if you get back to them with, hey, how about this? You can actually build upon it and figure out how to get around it. So I think we are our own worst enemy. It's too easy to say no.
A way to handle that, too, I think, is empower the idea maker. to say, how are you going to get it done? Ask that question, let them develop the concept and see how they could get it over the finish line. And I think that they might get to know on their own if it's not a workable idea, or they might find the way to get that idea to yes. And that's an empowerment strategy.
One neat thing Daimler has done recently is come up with some initiatives they call game changers, but one of them is called an incubator. So basically, anybody in the company or any team in the company can come up with an idea, put together a proposal. There's a platform to share it internally throughout the company, and then employees can give feedback and also give a yay or nay. If they like the idea, then it gets pushed forward to another level. It's kind of this Shark Tank environment where there are actually groups in the company that have money to fund these projects. Then they listen to it. If they think it's good, then it's past the next level. They'll fund it, and that team can go to one of the innovation centers around the world and actually work on this project, bring it to life. If it turns out, pilot it, and if it's feasible, they'll implement it. So anybody in the company can come up with these ideas.
But I think the empowerment point was good. I was reading a business book this week, probably on the plane or something, and they were saying one of the things, and it was a Silicon Valley company, so one of the things they did was to challenge every idea. When someone comes up and says, I've got this great idea, the board's job, or whoever that selective group were, their job was to say, no, it won't work because of this, and it won't work because of that. But what they did it in a way where they allowed the person who made the suggestion to explain why it would. I think sometimes if you say, I've got a great idea, I want to do this, and whatever that group is says, actually we don't think it'll work because of A, B, and C, and then it's too easy, or maybe too often, to just say, oh, okay, and walk out with your head down. I think that you've got to have these discussions, but in a way, give them the power and the confidence to actually argue back, as opposed to just walk out and say, okay, fair enough. Sorry, you were going to say something, Kathy.
No, I was just going to offer. I think that's right, Louis. Just maybe to share personal experience at United Road. So we have a virtual idea box, and you can send it into Ideas at United Road, or we have a Fuel the Engine program. And so on a quarterly basis, well, every month people could submit ideas, and we had a multidisciplined committee that looked at all the ideas and gave every single person a response to their ideas. There were criteria, needed to be roadworthy, actionable, those kinds of things. But we were getting ideas in from our car haulers, from mechanics, from biz dev folks, from IT folks, coming all across the organization. Sometimes very small incremental change, but sometimes huge annoyance removers, sometimes big customer enhancements, all kinds of things. And then quarterly, we do a big drawing and hand out some cash prizes. And at the end of the year, the top 3 prizes got big dollars, $5,000 prizes and the like. I mean, we had changes to designs on our trailer that came from car haulers. If we had questions about what was suggested, we had the committee reach out and have conversations with the employees so that they could provide additional feedback. So they're really we had several hundred ideas come in. I think we implemented 60% of the ideas that came in.
Can we just, when we have a chance to check the mic, because we kept losing Kathleen there, so I don't know what the issue is. But if we can just keep an eye on that, please.
Okay.
But just for fun, because I like arguing with you, Anu, I want to disagree on one of your points that innovation.
I'm done.
is incremental change. I think that incremental change is our basic job. I think that the game changers, when we talk about game changers at the moment, we're talking about, the two that stand out that everybody talks about are kind of Uber and Airbnb. They weren't incremental change, and not only weren't they incremental change, but if they were actually suggested, if those guys worked for Marriott in Airbnb's case, said, I've got a great idea, why don't we do this thing where people can rent out the rooms and so on, it's going to be worth billions, that would have been the end of Airbnb. Marriott would have said, no, that's a crazy idea, we've got hotels, that's the end of that. Although Airbnb are potentially one of Marriott's biggest competitors. If Uber worked for Metro cabs in Detroit or Yellow cabs in New York, and said, "I've got a great idea. Why don't we, find a way where local people can use their cabs?" Again, that would have been the end of that. Look at how big is, would metro cars in Detroit love to be in Uber's position? Absolutely. So how do we, encourage not just the incremental change? How do we encourage the real game changes? Because perhaps that's what's going to be the killer. The killer for automotive or for car makers isn't going to be, did we do enough incremental changes? Might the killer be that we never found or encouraged big ideas?
All right, so let's start arguing. How many people sitting in the audience or with your teams will challenge your teams to make their jobs disappear? We're not wired to think like this.
Yeah.
You sit down with my team and you say, tell me the next game changer in our industry, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Right? We're not wired to think that way. Amazon started with books. Right? And look where they are now, right? They view things differently. So we can talk about, hey, let's go hire people for the next big game changer. The problem with the next big game changer is if your culture doesn't incentivize, support, grow that, it's not going to happen, right? We're a company of, I think, 13 or 14 brands globally. You take a look at how we do stuff, right? In some cases, brands do their own thing. You could leverage this with synergies, right? One of the words I hate most is, what are you doing to leverage synergies, right? Right? You got a Porsche depot 1.1 miles from a VW and Audi depot in LA. 27% of the dealers are the exact same friggin' address. Why are you sending trucks from two buildings that are a mile away to the same dealer address? I don't know, that's the way it is, right? Sit down and on paper, go integrate, right? That's a simple incremental change. But what it takes to get there, because I don't need two depot managers, I don't need multiple inbound supervisors, multiple outbound supervisors, I don't need the redundant workforce. I had my counterpart on the other side said, we're not doing it until my boss tells me to do it because our jobs will go away.
I guess one question I pose based on that, why does it have to be one or the other?
Yeah.
Yeah, advance, where you can advance, where you can be aggressive, and where it makes sense to make those incremental changes that can bring, value added to the customer that you maybe would be more than you think, as you discussed, could go a long way. So,
you read all the stuff
drive
out
both trains, right?
You read all the stuff out there, right? As leaders, you're supposed to be spending 80% of your time managing your people, right? Developing your people. How many people here do that? We do performance reviews, interim and the final, right? We do calibrations. So in the course of the year, I'm spending 4 hours doing it, and I hate doing it. Okay? Everyone's got a day job, and you got to move stuff from here to there, and you just don't get around to it, right? So how do you develop that culture, right? To me, if you ask your team for the game changer, we don't know how to do it, and we're going to fail, so we don't do it. Right? So that's why I try to use the at least interim, right, wrong, or indifferent. Come up with 5 or 10 little things, and that will be one big thing. And you can get there. You're starting to give them a roadmap. Anybody, look, if I had the Lyft, the Uber, the Airbnb idea, I guarantee you I wouldn't be sitting here. Right?
I guess I'm more optimistic. I think he could do both.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's a good question in terms of how do you wire it. But I think if you set a challenge out there for your team and you can't show them how to do it, you're set up for failure.
Yeah. Okay. To bring the audience in as well. I mean, maybe one question, if anyone's willing to do it, is perhaps anyone who voted or thinks that the industry reluctance is a restriction to change, to innovation. I don't know if anyone wants to kind of expand on that. Why do you think, and what did you mean by the industry reluctance? Was it the logistics companies? What do you think the car makers restrict you? Do you think the dealers, restrict? Is anyone able or willing to expand on what is meant by the industry's reluctance to change or the industry's reluctance to innovate? Okay. I mean, it might be that the industry's reluctance to say out loud what they're thinking. I don't know. Someone know just
Can I
just
comment
there?
one thing? I think one question
sorry,
really is the technology there. It could be one point too.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's incumbent on us as industry to kind of say what to those entrepreneurs what we need to make things better, so that you can have that dialogue about how to innovate, what to fast track some ideas and whatnot, or create that R&D piece of it, and perhaps there's forums that could come together and say, what does our industry need? Where are our technology gaps? So you can start incentivizing those technology developments. What are they? You know, define them as technology available for our industry to capitalize on. I think we'd all want to do that because you'd see efficiencies.
A question there? A question or comment?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I'll stay out of the finished vehicle logistics so nobody gets upset here. But I think, as you heard, I do a lot of work on privacy and cybersecurity. And a lot of customers, not only the final users, but fleets and rental car companies are complaining about the fact there's information in the car. They would like a simple way to delete information. So they wanted a erase button, right? So at the conference last week, I told everybody, I think that's the wrong problem to solve, because I've lost my phone before, and I didn't have to call Apple or Samsung or anybody else to delete my information. I didn't worry because my information is encrypted and has dual security, right? Dual factor authentication. I need to put a PIN every time I open my phone. And then I started to ask, well, we do this for a $400 piece of hardware. Why don't we do this with a $40,000 car? And I actually started to pick up the phone and call people in product development at a number of automakers. And I told them, look, I got 2 small kids, and they never ask me what's on TV, because the concept of what's on TV doesn't exist, because they grew up with Netflix. By the time they drive, I'd like them to never have to think about anything, but I need to authenticate, otherwise I cannot get into the car. So my information is private and secure, and it's encrypted and all of this kind of stuff. That's a harder conversation, you would think. And I don't know if it's the not invented here syndrome. I'm a hauler. What the hell do I know about infotainment systems, right? So why should they listen to me? But I think it's a decent idea. And I think it's hard to communicate change and things to do differently. And now you need to get into large teams, because now you need to involve the people from cybersecurity and product development and marketing and sales. And I think those conversations are hard. I mean, I've been working for large companies before. It's just hard. So I think there's just a lot of friction in getting change. My 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just to build on that a little bit. I'll give you an example. Part of my team's responsibility as group services is market research, customer research, product research, market research, right? So this is clinics for vehicles. Electric vehicles is a big thing out, right? Everyone's talking about this. Pulled together 2,000 customers in the Northeast and ask them what they want. And you get this look. What are you talking about, right? Show them 5 things, and they'll have an opinion about every one of them. Because everyone has opinions, right? It's the one thing we all have in common. We have opinions, good, bad, indifferent. They can tell you what they like or don't like, but they can't tell you what they want until you put something in front of them. So think about what we do in our business, right? What's the idea? I don't know, right? Put 4 or 5 different options in front of us, and every one of us will have a thought on what that is. So who, as you're talking about, who is going to put those ideas in front of us to take a look at? Or are we expecting our teams on the OE side to develop that? Right? And if you do, you get the blank stare. Right? It's amazing when you sit there, right? What do you as a customer expect? What do you think? What's an electric vehicle mean to you? What do you think of the design, right? You'll get those answers. But if you ask them what they want in a car, other than reliable, cost-effective transportation, what do you expect them to tell you, right? The shift by wire these days, right? You got a knob, you got a gear shift, you got buttons. There's 22 or 23 different versions of that in the US today, right? Why do we change PRNDL? Right? You make room for space, the electronics, all that kind of stuff, right? Confuse the hell out of the customers. My wife's got a vehicle. The park is a Park is a button on the stalk. Right? She hates it. With a passion, it's my fault because I've got market research and we didn't stop it. Right? So, all right. But that's what you got to ask yourself. Put some stuff out there and then build on it. And that's what teams do. Right? That's how you get innovation, right? One person builds on an idea.
Any questions or comments from the audience? No? How do you formulate, or does it need an industry-wide plan? You know, we're kind of looking at these problems as individuals or individual companies. Do you think it needs an industry-wide plan to encourage the change? Or do you think inevitably it's going to be customer by customer, division by division?
Start?
You know, I'll go first, I guess. I think an industry-wide plan is not practical. So we may, through incremental change, get to a place where it impacts the entire industry. You know, there are some really great initiatives that should be lauded. The rail car haul initiative, where folks are working together, and AIAG's taken the lead on that from a facilitation standpoint. There are individual companies that are trying to work together to make changes. There are issues or initiatives around some electronics, the e-pods, et cetera. Those are all really good things that are impacting the industry. But I happen to believe it's going to be hand-to-hand combat and relationships with people where you've got trust, where you can get in and try and make change. And then hopefully when you make those changes, some momentum gathers and the entire industry will pick up on it.
To me, it starts with, to build on what Kathleen is talking about, do we consider what we do a competitive advantage for our companies? And if we consider it a competitive advantage, you will not get an industry-wide solution because everyone's going to, right? Is delivering vehicles to dealers a competitive advantage from the customer's viewpoint? And if it is or isn't, it's going to drive a different solution, right? It's take the service parts side. Do we compete with the big three or other OEs on service parts sales? No. Right? We compete with the independent repair market. It changes how you think. So why am I not putting parts on trucks with the other OEs if their dealers are right down the street? Right? It's because we think it's a competitive advantage when it's not. So if you think if you change how you're thinking about it, it'll drive a different solution. And that's where I think we get it wrong. There are things that we can do better as an industry, and there are things that we will continue to keep internally, right? OEs. You used to have vertical integration on all parts, right? Every OE had a different level of vertical integration. And it's now been whittled down to those that you believe are your core competencies, right? Is the sheet metal a core competency in a vehicle? Is the powertrain, right? It's becoming more and more the software in the cars, right? So you've got less and less vertical integration on the hard parts. To me, that's how you got to start looking at this stuff. What matters to the customer? What truly gives you a competitive advantage, and do you want that to be a core competency? If it isn't, you're going to keep it inside.
Plan is sort of an interesting word to say that you're going to come up and develop an industry-wide plan. Well, that's quite a challenge, I would say, and a task to say, well, our industry's got a plan. I don't know to do that, but you know what we can do, I think, is have a conversation. And I think you could get all the different stakeholders in a room and have that conversation and say, hey, are there areas where we can exchange best practice? Are there needs gaps in our industry? You could have those roll up the sleeve conversations and say, you know what, why are we falling short? perhaps in advancing technologies, or do we need to be, and it depends where you are in the supply chain. If you're thinking strictly in the silo of an OEM and developing a vehicle, or are you thinking about how you're moving a vehicle along the supply chain, right? So those are two different types of innovation discussions to be had. But I think there's definitely a place to get the leaders in a room and have a conversation, build big ideas, and then find ways to implement them.
I've got a question on the app, which kind of goes back to maybe the reluctance. Is it a case of the OEMs, car makers, not wanting a change to the industry? Every day we're faced with changes that can and would enable, or challenges that can and would enable change, but OEMs are slow to react by that, and with time it's seen as too late. So they're saying that there is innovation, there is technology out there. We asked about whether there's technology available. One of the possibilities seem to be that OEMs are too slow to react. So Jim?
There's, I wouldn't say bureaucracy, but there's a lot of levels and different considerations within a big company. So it's not like I can go out and decide this technology looks great, I'm going to implement it. There's so many people have to get involved, and how does it integrate, what's the cost, and how does it tie into everything else we're doing. So I don't have that power to make a decision, but when you're smaller, you're a little more flexible and can do that kind of stuff, but it's not that easy for an OEM.
What about the purchase? Definitely on the inbound side, I hear this a lot. That a logistics provider goes to an OEM said, "I've got a fantastic idea. It's really different. What do you think?" And the car maker says, "That's a great idea," and then you put it out to tender. Is that something that happens on the finished vehicle logistics side?
I don't think that from our perspective we've seen that as a threat to bringing ideas. Usually in interacting with our customers, when we have a collaborative idea that we think will serve them better, they're respectful of that, and then will work with us to the extent that they're able in order to do those types of things. So at least in our experience, that's not been an issue.
Yeah, in my experience either, right? I mean, if you do, you kill the relationship. And I mean, the smart comment here would be, if we heard an idea and took it out to tender, that'd be one step further than I thought we'd ever take anything. Right? It doesn't get to that point. To me, it's, are you getting to the right people? Because there isn't, how many people in this room provide yard management systems? Right?
Just a genuine question. How many people in the audience provide yard management systems?
Or use them? Right? We've got people that are trying to sell us this stuff out there. We'll come up, we all know it's a good thing to do. There's different versions of it, and we find reasons not to do it. Right? And sometimes money, time, got 6 ports, I got 5 different operators. They're the ones that got to do it because it's a contracted service that I get. Right? So I love the idea, it's great, right? Go talk to this person. Okay, great. You got them out of your office, spent 10 minutes, right? Maybe got lunch out of it. Right? The hell with that. Do you take ownership for what's happening here? Right? That's what it comes down to.
Questions from the audience? Right, there's a question right at the back. I'll start there. Right at the back. Is anyone right at the back? Maybe we need some technology here as well to get to the audience.
Hi there. Hello. Michael Martin from DHL. I attending this conference really just to sort of understand the finished vehicle logistics compared to inbound and to aftermarket. And one of the things which I see in terms of this innovation, in terms of adoption, seems to be who actually benefits from this. Because typically, when I look at markets and how they're changing and how they're evolving, you can see there's clear reasons for introducing things. And from my perspective, I can see that you've got lots of different stakeholders with the finished logistics supply chain, but it's how do you get those different stakeholders to share information, to work a little bit better together without somebody said to me earlier, sort of sit in a circle and sing Kumbaya. It is the question that I'm throwing out to you. And it's got to be driven by customers, hasn't it? It's got to be that the trends of manufacturing and the supply chain has got to be based upon the customers in the future. And at the moment, your supply chains are all based upon manufacturing. And it might take 1 year, it might take 5 years, but ultimately, it's going to be customers that are going to drive the changes and the innovations that's going to be needed. And ultimately, it's going to be the new starters that are going to come up into the industry that are going to cause a shock. And the amount of people that are now looking to enter the automotive industry, because of the changes of manufacturing, we're going to electric vehicles. So in the past, you made a car and it took 6,000 to 9,000 parts. Manufacturers can now make cars that is really sub-assembly, making cars with much less parts. I really believe there's going to be new entrants, new business models, and new ways of working. And that's what's going to drive the change. And the question I'd pose back to the panel is, do you see those new entrants coming into the industry as being a shock, somebody that could potentially cause problems? And do you see that the new entrants in terms of electric vehicles that could give you more competition? Because it's unprecedented for what I can see, the amount of new competition that you might be getting in your industry. And whether it's North America that it starts, I don't know. This is a very unique region, but I do see it on a global basis, a lot of change coming, which will drive the changes.
Well, Tesla's come in and changed a lot already. So the electric vehicle, the franchise model, so competition is good. It's not a bad thing, and I don't think it's a major threat, but it will change. People want that car. You know what? Everybody's going to start building electric.
Yeah, what you said is interesting, right? Think of the customer. I was reading an article, 5-6 months ago that said down the road, fleet customers are going to be responsible for 5 million new car purchases in the U.S. a year. That's a third of the volume, right? A little less than a third of the volume. What are so Uber, Amazon, Lyft, et cetera, right? The fleet owners in our business today are less than 1%, right? Audi's got Silver Car, right, that we just did. Fleet's not a real big business for the Volkswagen side or the Porsche side of the business. What are the needs, wants, desires of the fleet customers versus our dealers today? What's their expectation on finished vehicle logistics? What's their expectation on service? Right? Sit some people in the room from our team, think about it, and it's a think tank, and we'll spend 10 minutes on it every 6 months. Right? But this is coming. It's here. Right? So why don't we bring them in, ask them what they need from us? What are their expectations? Why are we talking to them? Right? They're going to be buying 1 out of every 3 vehicles in the U.S. And I don't know what they want. Right? That's the conversation we got to have. It's going to change what we do. Right? We can talk about electric vehicles, what it does in the ports and the handling and all that kind of stuff, right? Autonomous vehicles. Ask Porsche what they think of autonomous vehicles, right? Why do people buy a Porsche? To sit in it or to drive it? Right? I mean, those are the kinds of things you got to start asking yourself. Right? I think it's a great point. I don't know the answer today. We got to do this, right? But it's not in our DNA to have that conversation right now.
I think that's a really great point. And once that change starts coming too, I think you got to make sure you're engaging all parts of the supply chain, because so often in our industry you find that we're just catching up with the change. So whether it's a consolidation in a big ocean carriers for the ports, by way of example, all of a sudden we have to be able to handle a lot more cargo at the same time. Like, how do we not always have to play catch up, but we're working in sync and having that conversation so we're prepared for the change in this, and keep a seamless supply chain.
Was there a question on that side? Talking about new talent, I think we need to bring some younger people into automotive logistics who can move a little bit faster.
Yeah.
I hope you were talking about me, Louis.
No, not at all.
Wow. Brian Mason with Pasha, and looking at the name of this session being leadership, and talking a little bit earlier in the survey, it was identified that we're looking for different types of people in the future roles in logistics. The question was, and Anu, you talked about every manager should be focusing on developing their people. My question would be, for your organizations, are you spending time focused on leadership development as opposed to management or technical development?
Yeah, more and more now. I mean, everyone, you read the papers, you know what we've been going through for the last couple of years. We are spending more and more time working to develop leaders. Right? My first boss, prior company, day one, told me his job was to develop me to replace him. Completely different mindset than go do this, right? Assigning tasks. You ever watch your people present? How many of your direct reports or their direct reports are you comfortable putting in front of your CEO? How do you get people developed to feel comfortable to present in that environment, right? Why aren't we giving them day-to-day experiences presenting to the teams, right? To build up that confidence. Because when I hired in, this is going to date me a little bit, mid-'80s, it was, oh yeah, we can fix that by sending you to Dale Carnegie. Well, great, I get a couple pencils, 2 pencils, like a Dale Carnegie on it, and now I can speak to our CEO. No friggin' way. Right? This happens over time where you build up comfort. So yes, we talk about leadership development plans, right? We got my team sitting here at the middle table. How much time do we spend talking about the strengths and weaknesses of each individual and developing a plan to help address and develop them? Right? We got to do it more and more, and it's important, right? When I got out of school, I was told by a finance professor, you're going to work for 3 companies during your career, right? Mid-'80s, coming out of business school. I spent 27 years in my prior company, and I'm sitting there thinking he's an idiot. I'm on my 3rd company. Kids coming out of school today are told they're going to work for 10 to 11 companies in their career. You don't have defined pensions, they're mobile, they're moving around, right? All that kind of stuff. So ask yourself, are you going to invest in developing someone when you're their 1st to 9th stop? Because they're going to leave, right? So you can come up with reasons not to do it. You got to figure out how to do it. I mean, Kathleen was telling us a story earlier today about the retention, what they're doing. I think it's fantastic. You have to understand what people's needs and wants and desires are and figure out how to meet that. That, to me, is leadership development. Right? You can have all the programs in the world, but if you don't believe it, it doesn't work. I mean, the other thing that the guy did, besides something he had to train me, he asked me if I'd signed up for the company matching program, right? I come out of school, my biggest expense was my car and my bar bill. Right? And he took me down. He goes, look at the auto industry. It goes cyclical. Company's giving you 60 cents on the dollar company matching from day one, and you didn't sign the form at HR? Grabbed me by the arm, walked me down. I signed the form. I didn't miss it in my paycheck, but now, all that stuff compounds. He cared about us. Right? Do your people believe you care about them? And if they don't, you're going to get the effort commensurate with that. So do you care?
Yeah, I think having a happy workforce too makes for a more productive workforce. And so you want people to come to work, be motivated, see that they have channels for growth, for opportunity, to be challenged, to get trained. I always commit to my team that I'm making an investment in you, and it's up to you to capitalize on that investment, but the tools are there before you. We've actually implemented a team building strategy that we call Back to the Future Empowerment Series. And it kind of starts with developing people to have a mutual respect for one another. And we actually, it sounds at first kind of like, oh, will people be receptive to that? But at the end of the day, once we've gone through this psychology analysis with the team, every one employee that I have has enjoyed it. And it's called DISC, where you have people do a self-assessment of themselves and they identify what type of person they are. And so there's a dominating person, an influencing person, a steady person, a conscientious person. It's based on this self-evaluation. And what you learn from this self-analysis is if you're a conscientious person. You like methods done when you're in the workplace. You want to follow methods. You don't want someone just barging in your office. You want to have a scheduled appointment. If you're a dominant person, you just want to get it done. And so you actually learn as a culture in your organization how different people work with each other and how to build a mutual respect for one another and how you go and talk to that person. And then it makes a kind of a confidence in your culture where people are going to bring up ideas. They know how to talk to each other and they know how to work together. And it was when I first implemented with my HR department, I said, well, we'll see how this goes. You know, we'll try it on for size. Are people going to really engage? And it's really created, and I have two of my staff here today that I'm sure would be happy to talk about it, but it's really enhanced the culture of our working environment and it's made us more productive. So I think developing a foundation of mutual understanding and then creating those avenues of opportunity for your staff can be key to your productivity in a good workplace environment.
I might tag along to some of what Kristen is saying. We have to be more intentional about developing leaders and motivating our people inside the organization. We have so much distributed decision making. You know, we have, 5 years ago, we moved 1.5 million cars. The last 12 months, we moved 3.5 million cars. We have people all over the country and in Canada making decisions. And so ensuring that they have the chops, right? They have the leadership skills in order to make the proper decisions is really, really important for our customers, for our organization. We've implemented a talent management system. It's not just about giving reviews, but it's about building up profiles of the capabilities, the background, the skill sets of our folks, how we might cross-train them in different areas, who's promotable, who's not quite yet promotable, and how could we work on helping them develop skills so they can be promotable. All those things come together in order to make sure that our people are positioned. Also gives them a little bit better view of potential career paths. Some folks that we look at as future leaders in the organization, we're investing in coaching, independent coaching, to help them work on certain skills, soft and hard, mostly soft, to be honest with you, in order to put them in a position that they can lead more and more and more in the company as a whole. So our people are the most important resource that we have, and we so easily forget that in the day-to-day challenges that we have. So it really makes a lot of sense to invest in it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just to give you a quick story, one of the skills that I think is key for people is the art of the 2-minute management update. How many people can come and explain a situation to you in less than 2 minutes in a form that someone that doesn't know what we do understands it? Right? And you can't, right? So you end up in these longer meetings. Bought a 2-minute egg timer. With certain individuals, we're trying to develop this skill, and they come in, I flip it upside down. And when that last grain of sand hits, and if they haven't been able to explain it, they go, damn, they go away, they think about the issue, then they come back. So you can do things on your own to drive it, right? To me, it's if you can't explain it in 2 minutes, you haven't thought about it well enough, right? Because in our company, right, I go talk to my senior management, and their attention span for what we do is this big, right? We're not the sexy marketing, sales, right, product end of the business. We're the back room, biggest cost element, right? Just fix it, make it go away. Success is if I don't hear about your failures, right? And my response is, I can't guarantee that because someone's always going to complain, right? So if the attention span's this big, how do you explain a situation to them that they will be interested in, realize is important? You ever see that old IBM commercial? This guy walks in to a CEO talking about green supply chain. And the CEO goes, why would I be interested? It's a book this big, and they got an hour meeting. And the guy thinks about it and says, because if we follow what's in here, we save $100 million. In 10 seconds, he got his CEO's attention, right? That's how you got to grab them with the sound bite, help them understand, right, and what they can do to support it. That's why the art of the 2-minute management update is key.
Got a couple of questions on the app here. One of them, aside from being innovative, What role are you playing as a disruptor to innovation? How are you disrupting new entrants into the supply chain so that you can remain competitive? So what are you doing to really shake things within your industry? Whether it's for you with car makers or for you to your suppliers, with you guys maybe trying to get your customers, disrupting their way of thinking, changing their way of thinking.
Well, from a technology standpoint, this is a place where we've invested a lot over the years. We are constantly tweaking our tech and currently rolling out an optimizer that is beyond anything that we've done before. That's we're very hopeful going to create significant efficiency, save time with our people. Early feedback is very, very good on that. So beyond that, for a number of years, as we were developing the tech, we decided that we were going to keep it in-house. We ultimately decided that we would spin it off, separate company, separate ownership, which we did a couple of years ago, and now we're licensing the technology even among our competitive set. So that's a couple examples of how we're trying to do things differently.
I talked a little bit about our MASS program and how we enter, the incubator settings that we've created in that. But I'll just say on the other side of the coin, California ports, and some of you can appreciate in this room, have had a little help from regulators, where we've been told our shippers, you must plug in if you're going to call on our port. This is not in the ro-ro business, but in the refrigerated cargo ships now are demanded to plug in at berth. And to be frank, and we're going to see this come upon other parts of industry. And I think what I would say, kind of from a supply chain perspective, particularly if you're doing business in California, you have to be competitive if you're going to continue to do business here, because it's coming, and it will push us all towards these new technologies. We have 6 berths now that are electrified to plug in the refrigerated cargo ships, but we're looking at our regulators, and we strongly believe that other segments of our industry are going to get regulated. So I think we have to keep pace with regulation too, and be part of those conversations with the regulators to try and make it happen and be more industry driven to get successful outcomes. But there's also that element where there's going to be the pressure of the regulator, the community, and on environmental agendas.
I know, Jim, anything to add on?
You stay in touch with your customer. I mean, disruption and creating new innovations, I mean, it's got to be based on what the customer wants, what's available in the marketplace, and just staying in touch with customers and your partners.
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but I'll just try to give you an example from the service lane perspective. Kathleen and I were having this chat earlier about the customer experience when you drive into a dealership, right? So we talk digital after sales, right? Nice buzzword, all that kind of stuff, right? Code word for everything's on an iPad or something, and you walk around the car with the customer, and you can show them and all the pricing and whether the parts are there or not. Everything is transparent. You don't have to go back to a desk and come up with something with them. Their vehicle history information's there, all the warranty, open service actions, et cetera. So that's technology driven. Is that our core business? Right? There's people out there that have software that does this. Okay? Do we get it, or do we develop this in-house? And we've made the decision we're developing it in-house. Right? Because the customer touch point's a competitive advantage. And the products that are out there don't meet the requirements that we believe are necessary. So if you want to be a disruptor, now I don't believe we're an IT company, but maybe it's headed that way, right? So what Kathleen says about licensing the technology is interesting, but everything in cars today is IT driven. How many people can connect their iPhone to a new car? Right? I mean, what problems did Ford have with the sync system when it first came out? Right? It wasn't the manufacturing quality of the vehicle. They got the best quality products they've ever had. It's the individual interfacing with the software in the car. So that, to me, if that's the issue, then why are you outsourcing it? It's just a question, I mean, it's a fair question to ask. There's no right, wrong, or indifferent answer, but that's what drives a company's DNA. And once you figure that out, you'll figure out what you want to do. So to me, the disruptor is the technology interface with the customer.
Okay. Point you made, I think it was you, Anu, who said it earlier, about an old boss of yours who said that what he wanted from you was to prepare you to replace him. Yep. And I've got to say, I'm not sure that's such a great idea. Because we've got a message here from Christopher Ludwig. He's asking a question. And that plan definitely went wrong for me because he's done a great job in replacing me. He's now my boss, in effect. So, no, but it's good. And Nemish as well. They all seem to be kind of like, they're doing a great job in doing too good a job and almost going to replace me. So I'm keeping an eye on you guys, don't worry. But it's a great question from Christopher. Some technology that will enable innovations in mobility that are out there, such as AI, visual mapping, blockchain, can be applied to logistics. But do you give your teams the space to explore these, even if they're not part of the day-to-day operations? Do you give them the chance to experiment, try, learn about these new technologies?
Oh, it's interesting. Once go I would say, yeah, I do. Right? Now ask me how I do it. And the answer is, or ask them if I do. I'll argue I don't. Not enough. Yeah. Right? Ask them if they want to. Then you get a question about is the talent matching, right? The answer is obviously you never do enough of it, right? Because that's why we're up here talking about it, right? If we were doing it, this wouldn't be a topic of discussion today, right? So, I mean, that's a smart thing. In terms of setting up your, just to get to the boss that says, my job is to train you to replace you, right? Or to replace me. The first question to ask is, did I want that job? Right? But it's the mindset. Yeah. If you have that mindset, you will develop your team, whether they want that job or not. You're going to give them experiences they otherwise wouldn't get. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is what this is about.
I mean, there's a practical balance, too, right? We don't have unlimited resources. So, you know, it's one thing to have an incubator. It's another thing to fund it. And we talked before about the importance of being really clear about the direction we're heading. So we like to make sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction. It doesn't mean that occasionally you shouldn't be thinking about other things to do. We wouldn't have the optimizer that we're rolling out today if, 6 years ago we didn't have IT folks tinkering with what was possible. So it's always good to have that, but the practical side of it is, there's a cost. There's a cost.
I agree, it's 100% balance. You have to set goals, strategy, and frankly, be honest with your budget about how much you put into this and then create that empowerment about how far, based on that budget. But I heard this interesting analogy the other day from, I was in a different empowerment panel, and a woman started with a candle, and she held this candle, it was lit, and then she gave us all candles. And then she passed the light on down, and she said, well, what did we learn? We all have strongly lit candles, and we're all a lot brighter now that we have this more light. So it seems, and so I think it's a good story, that you can, without losing the brightness of your own light, you can pass the torch and tower and create more opportunity. Cool, yeah.
I mean, here's another question. Kathleen's talking about practical world with limited resources, spot on. Here's another question to ask yourselves. You come up with something that makes sense in our business. Does it reduce cost, improve quality, or grow sales? Little of what we do grows sales. So you're the CEO of a company, you got to make a decision. Does that money get allocated here to grow sales, develop fun product, or I'll go invest this because I think it'll reduce cost? Right? Where's the money go? Right? In a prior life, marketing campaigns. Put money into marketing. You ask yourself this for service parts, and I get in trouble with my colleagues in other industries on this. Why do we invest in marketing for captive parts? The dealer has no choice other than to buy the part from me. Why am I spending marketing for them to do that? The issue is on competitive parts that they can buy elsewhere. Go look at our marketing spend. How much is on captive parts? Right? I'm not a marketing guy, but I don't get it. Like, they have no choice. Right? So what the hell am I doing with my money? Right? But that's the mindset. We've always done that. Okay, great. It's stupid. Right? And I'm not, for everybody that's out there listening that works, I'm sorry. But it's nothing we haven't said before. It's where's your money best utilized, right? It's not who has the best idea, it's he who sells it best. Right? And companies that really get it will come back and say, you know what, I used to work for a guy that, if he gave you the money, you're supposed to come back in 6 months and show him, did it deliver? And if it didn't deliver, next time you come forward, you're not getting the money. Right? So it put in a certain amount of accountability and tempering the promise of return versus the old days. Right? So he held people accountable by making them come back and say, my job as CEO is to decide, you make your pitch, minimize risk, maximize opportunities. My job is to decide if I give it to you, time, people, resources, money, cash, whatever. And then I want you to come back and tell me how you did. This is what you told me it would do. Did it deliver? And if it didn't, next time, I may not trust you as much, or I don't have the credibility of your idea. Right? So there's things you can do to hold accountable.
But isn't that restricting the point we said about empowerment? You've got, one of the things they say in Silicon Valley is that they almost encourage the mistakes. Are we discouraging risk and mistakes in our industry, possibly because of the low margins? But, are we discouraging that, the risk of trying things different?
Well, there are certain things that must by their nature be discouraged because we have guardrails. We have regulatory guardrails, we have economic guardrails, we have customer guardrails, we have things that limit what we do. You can say we want to empower people, but it's to a limit. Everything has limits. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about sparking creativity within those limits, no, mm-hmm. I don't think that we're discouraging people at all.
Okay. For some reason, this audience seems to be a bit shy because I'm getting a lot of questions on the app, and don't be scared to put your hands up. That can encourage different conversations. So I think I don't know if it's a question or someone's just waving to me, but I see a hand up there. So.
Hi, I'm Chris Paxton with Ritchie Auto Transport. We've talked about incremental changes versus a demonstrable industry change, and which is appropriate, and I'm not sure there's an answer to that. But I think it was you, Anu, that had mentioned Amazon being an industry disruptor, right? Their most recent attempt at that has been in the prescription industry, and they've stated they're going to drive down prescription costs. They entered into a partnership with JP Morgan Chase and Berkshire Hathaway in an effort to do that. If you look at that industry, you can see that United Healthcare and their subsidiary OptumRx, they're kind of the success story in that industry where they've been able to combine medical and pharmacy data to improve patient outcomes and drive down those costs. That industry had a very impressive response where a series of mega acquisitions took place with Cigna acquiring Express Scripts as well as CVS acquiring Aetna. Do you foresee this industry taking a similar approach and leveraging some of our other resources? And if so, do you have any ideas on what that might look like?
The simple answer is yes, I foresee it. And yes, we have some ideas that we can't talk about here. Right? It's absolutely. That we'd be idiots to ignore it. And it's coming. And it's coming what I try to tell our team is, it's not coming, it's here. And I think as Kristen said earlier, we always play catch up, right? Kathleen mentioned it with their optimizer. They started developing it 6 years ago?
At least.
Right?
Yeah. The tinkering, the patent was 2011, so the tinkering was before that.
Right? If you aren't thinking about this stuff now, it's going to be 2025 before you do anything. Mm-hmm. What's the world going to look like in 2025? It'll have passed us by. Not to be football, but yes and yes.
Yeah. Again, a question from the app, and very relevant for finished vehicle logistics. Do you think the high barriers of entry for finished vehicle logistics, railroads, the investment in trucks and so on, is preventing disruption and possibly shielding companies from the changes we're discussing? Is there, not enough competition able to come into this sector because of specialized and expensive equipment?
I think to some extent, definitely, especially in rail. I mean, it's, well, very, very heavy investment to get involved. And I think the barrier is too great to really get any real disruptors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would answer the same way for the car haul side of things. We have an incredibly fragmented industry. There are a handful of large players. There are some growing regional players. The biggest challenge we have, and I think we'll continue to have, is professional car haulers. And that is a real challenge that all of us in the industry are facing. It's something that really, when you look at the entire supply chain, is everybody's problem. I've talked to at least a subset of this group before about car haulers, where it's a very specialized type of work that they do. It's not bumping a dock, right? Not to take anything away from people that bump docks, but we have people who are athletes. They have to be comfortable with technology. They have to do customer service. They have to be away from home a lot, right? They have to drive 80,000 pounds down the road, and they have to be a car lover, and all the things that go along with that. So we demand a tremendous amount from the professional car hauler, and I think all of us, when it comes to that, should do whatever we can to remove the inefficiencies so they can get their jobs done for our customers. And it would help everybody in the supply chain. We're really excited about some of the cooperation that we've been seeing lately throughout the supply chain to help improve that situation with car haulers. But to me, that's a bigger issue than worrying about somebody else bringing another truck in. You got to have a professional behind the wheel.
I would add, too, that it might not just, you could look at a barrier challenge, but I think you could also look at an opportunity. You have big players that, I liked your analogy with the book there, you're going to make $100 million if you read it. Well, if you go to your partner and say, hey, I'm going to save you, if we do this, we can all save a bunch of money. Let's cut to the chase here and let's innovate. I think there's ways that you could certainly work with the big players that want to move cargo. We all have mutual goals. Let's collaborate on those goals and let's innovate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another question from the app. Because again, finished vehicle logistics, because of the things you transport, is unusual. So how do you benchmark? How do you compare yourselves to other industries? Where can you learn, from elsewhere? So you can find what innovations others are doing in different sectors. How do you benchmark with others?
For us, with the Volkswagen Group, yes, I'm a big believer in benchmarking. Right? We've got a little bit of advantage that some other companies may not. There are companies that are starting to do external benchmarking out there that we are involved with. The interesting thing with benchmarking is, what's the definition of the metric you're benchmarking? Right? How do you get everyone to use the same definition so that you get an apples-to-apples comparison, and then you can go figure out what you want to do? The other benchmark that we have is being a global company. We benchmark internally with other markets. Now, it's not the size of the U.S. or the complexity or the regulations, whatever, but you can start picking out a couple other countries around the world that are similar. Right? And then have that chat. Right? And Russia's 8 or 9 time zones? Right? What's the average haul there? Right? Drivers are fueled by vodka. Right? Should we be doing that here? Right?
But be careful, don't forget they're probably listening.
Right? So to me, it's internal and external. More appropriate for us in this market is the external. I'll still argue that benchmarking is in its infancy, because we're trying to get the definitions aligned. And that'll help us.
And we talked about, the customer. What is your definition of wowing the customer? And I'll start actually from the LSP side. What is your definition of wowing a customer?
Well, we make the promise, right, to deliver our vehicles on time, damage-free, and we work really hard to build the customer's trust. When we're wowing a customer, when we know that we have that personal relationship, they pick up the phone when they need help, we can help each other solve problems. Love to have our great rigs showing up with professional garb drivers who are doing whatever they can to serve the customer. If we remove challenges that our customers have with their customers, we're wowing the customer, right? So it's, we were talking earlier about transparency and data and getting information into everybody's hands. That can create a lot of different challenges, but there are so many easy ways for us to make the lives of our customers easier, and we like to do that wherever we can.
Kristen?
I guess just by pure definition would be being able to do it the best and do it better. And I think also just fundamentally too, having that appreciation, building an appreciation, making you're doing things that create an appreciation for that customer, whether it's just simple stuff, having a customer appreciation day or something like that really creates a wow factor, though, that it creates that true sense of appreciation. Is small stuff that can go a long way, but the big wow is going to be getting it done better, faster, cheaper.
Okay. And before I go to the others, I'll also turn that question around. What can your customers do to wow you? I mean, apart from just giving you lots of, if we take the money away, what can they do to make you think, wow, now that's a customer?
I would say empathy is really important. Humility is important. To help us, to have a desire to help us help them. We have folks that use carrots and folks that use sticks. There are folks that extend their hand to help and are really interested in helping and improving the overall situation. And there are others that are more heavy-handed, I'll say. So we're wowed by customers that really want to be partners. So we do our level best to help them.
Kristen?
Yeah, I would echo what she said, and I think it would come down to that true partnership and helping us understand how we can help them in a amiable, collaborative way. And of course, continuing to bring more and more business would be great, but I understand, the dynamics of that are negotiation and whatnot, but it's getting to an understanding that Rome wasn't built in a day necessarily. We need to work together to get to the finish line.
Okay, Jim, again, both ways the question, how can the LSPs make you go, wow, and what are you doing what is your definition of wowing your customer?
As far as our service providers, delivering on promises, I maybe have low expectations, but delivering on promises, dependability, and just incident-free deliveries, I mean, that's fantastic right there. Anything above that is great, but that's what I like. As far as our customers, really it's the dealer for the most part. Same thing. I mean, they just, it's a thankless job. You don't get a lot of compliments, but you just want to be able to deliver on commitments, give them accurate information as to when they can expect their cars, and just not screw up.
Second part of the question first, right? What do LSPs do that can wow us? Anticipate problems that we don't see. Not line item charge me for every little thing they do. Right? If it's a contractual relationship, you're screwed because you're going to get exactly what you contracted for. So to me, it's anticipating problems and being an extension of us, right? Feeling like they're part of the family, because then you get the best response, investment, et cetera, going forward. What's wowing the customer? Just two quick thoughts. One is customers buying vehicles from us again, right? Not giving them a reason to go buy somewhere else, right? And there's a lot of things that go into it. And one that's growing part of it is how are they rating us on Yelp or whatever you want to. Did we get 4 stars, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 5.0? Do we know? Because that is a huge driver for customers coming into our dealerships today. Right? So we're looking at changing how we do stuff with our dealers to build in ratings, social media, et cetera, right? That's the wow, that's how information is being transmitted today. Right? Those ratings drive customer behavior and purchases. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I think that's a good part of ending a good way to end this session, where we're talking about, wowing each other, I guess, because that's what we need to do. We talked about, the theme was inspiring fresh ideas and fresh strategy. I think the questions at the beginning, the voting survey showed that we need to, but I think we had a discussion here about what can be done. It seems to be communication, better communication all around, throughout the whole industry, but even to your teams, so that there's a clear message on how we can move, how we can improve, what needs to be done. Empowering, and again, with this question, how do you empower your suppliers? How do you empower your customers? But also very much, how do you empower your teams so they can feel confident to come up with new ideas in innovation and change, whether it's the incremental or whether it's the huge game changers, and encouraging the change. We don't want to be the guys, the naysayers. We can't afford to be the group that discourages innovation or reluctant to change. We can't afford to do that. No industry can afford to do that, and that definitely includes the automotive industry. So I think it was an interesting discussion and a valuable lesson for all of us on how and what we need to do to change, to make sure we stay relevant to the mobility industry of the future. So I'd like to thank the panel for an interesting discussion, and thank you very much. I just want to mention, you've got the evaluation forms in front of you. It's also available on the app. So it's only for those who are leaving today and aren't going to be back tomorrow. Please complete the evaluation forms. They're our version of Yelp, I guess. So let's see how we get rated. And just like we were just saying, we do take these evaluation forms very, very seriously. So if you're not going to be around tomorrow, please complete the evaluation forms and let us know what you really think. But before we go off for the dinner tonight, I'd like to invite Andrea Amico to just come up and say a few words about the dinner tonight. Is that all right? Please do, because we've got before we leave, because we won't have a chance during the gala dinner. Just I hope you had a great first day. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. I hope you made some good contacts. Rebuilt or continued old contacts. Tomorrow we've got a great day as well, looking at 3 sessions, looking forward at how the industry needs to change, what we can do together, how we can practically move together to move the industry forward, finishing with a great panel discussion at the end of the day or just after lunch. So make sure if you can be here for the full day, because we've got a great day tomorrow. There's also going to be a look at the exhibition area across the road, the truck equipment exhibition. So you can go over there anytime and see the trucks and new products that are out there. But also at the end of the day, we'll be having dogs and donuts. I hope and think that they meant hot dogs, tweet out there, and donuts. So make sure you're around for the whole day tomorrow, because we've got a great day ahead. But before that, we've got a fantastic dinner tonight hosted by our great friends, premier sponsors, Jack Cooper I'd just like to invite Andrea just to say a few words.
Well, this is going to be really hard. I know you already had to leave your homes and have to fly to sunny California, so I know it was a chore. So now you have a second chore attached, which is to go and eat and drink and have fun. So I just want to say thank you for everybody for coming here. This is a great conference, it's a great partnership we have with you, Louis, and your team. So just have fun. Thank you.
Let's go surfing now, everybody's learning how. Come on a safari with me.